Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're looking into something really quite amazing from the world of microbiology.
Yeah, it's about a newly found bacterium, one that can actually conduct electricity.
Conduct electricity. Okay, that's definitely got my attention. Our source is a paper in Applied and Environmental Microbiology.
Right, and it's full of fascinating details. So for this deep dive, our mission really is to unpack what makes this bug tick, how they found it, and, well, why you should care. The potential implications are pretty surprising.
Okay, let's jump right in. This electric bacterium, where did it come from? An unusual place.
You might think so, but actually it was found in something quite common, mud flats along the Oregon coast.
Mud flats, huh?
Yeah, specifically researchers took samples from the intertidal sediment in the Yaquina Bay estuary, so right there between the high and low tide marks.
And who are the key people involved in finding this?
Well, the main researchers were Cheng Li, he was a postdoc at Oregon State University then, and Claire Reimers, who's a professor emerita there.
Ah, Oregon State, okay.
Their work together really brought this to light.
So the bacterium's name, it's Candidatus Electrothrix yaqonensis. That's quite a mouthful. I'm guessing there's a reason for that specific name.
There definitely is. The first part, Electrothrix, that links it to a known group called cable bacteria. We can talk more about them in a bit.
Label bacteria, okay.
But the second part, yaqonensis, that's really special. It honors the indigenous Yaqona people from that area.
Oh, that's great. Tell me more about the Yaqona connection.
Yeah, so Yaqona was the name the local indigenous people used for the bay and the river places central to their life and land. It was also what they called themselves.
Right.
And today, their descendants are part of the Confederated Tribes of Siletz Indians. The researchers actually worked with the tribe to choose this name.
That's fantastic. It really acknowledges that deep history and connection to the land.
Exactly. The researchers really wanted to highlight that connection, recognizing the tribe's long history there and their ongoing role in understanding the local ecology. It's a nice touch in scientific naming, I think.
Yeah, agreed. Okay, so I've got cable Electrothrix yaqonensis, found in Oregon mud, named with respect for the local history. Now, these cable bacteria you mentioned, what are they generally like?
So cable bacteria are pretty wild. They're rod-shaped cells, but they link up end-to-end.
Like a chain.
Exactly, forming these long filaments. We're talking several centimeters long sometimes, which is huge for bacteria.
Wow.
And the really defining thing, as we said, is that they can conduct electricity. It's not typical bacterial behavior at all.
So why? Why would a bacterium need to conduct electricity? What's the advantage, especially down there in the mud?
It's all about survival in that specific environment. See, in sediment, oxygen, which many organisms need to breathe, is usually only right near the surface.
Okay.
But the food source, things like sulfide, that's often buried deeper down where there's no oxygen.
Ah, classic dilemma.
Right. So these cable bacteria, they basically use their electrical conductivity, like internal wires, to connect those two zones. They can oxidize sulfide down below and transfer the electrons up the filament to reduce oxygen at the surface.
So they're kind of bridging the gap electrically. They don't need to physically move up and down.
Precisely. It lets them access both the electron donor, food, and the electron acceptor, oxygen, simultaneously, even though they're separated in space.
Yeah.
It's a really clever metabolic trick.
Clever is right. So how does our new friend, Kayla Electrothrix yaqonensis, fit into this picture? What makes it stand out from other cable bacteria?
Well, this is where it gets really interesting from an evolutionary standpoint. This particular species seems to have a genetic mix. It's got metabolic pathways and genes found in both the Electrothrix genus and another related group, Yaqona Indigenous.
So it's like a hybrid, genetically speaking.
Kind of, yeah.
Yeah.
Or maybe something like an evolutionary link between the two groups.
Yeah.
Dr. Lean actually described it as possibly being a bridge or an early branch within the Electrothrix group.
A bridge. So it could tell us something about how these cable bacteria evolved.
Exactly. Studying it might give us new clues about their evolutionary history and maybe how they adapt to different types of sediment environments. Its genes suggest it might be metabolically flexible.
And it's not just the genes, right? I read something about physical differences, too.
That's right. Structurally, it's distinct. The most obvious thing is these ridges on its surface. They're much, much wider than what you see in other cable bacteria.
How much wider?
Potentially up to 3 times wider, according to the paper. Really pronounced ridges.
Okay, 3 times wider. And what's the deal with these ridges? Do they do something special?
They absolutely do. They're not just decoration. These ridges are packed with the conductive fibers. And here's another twist.
Go on.
The fibers in this bacterium are made of unique nickel-based molecules.
Nickel-based. Seriously, not iron or something more common in biology?
Nope, nickel. That's a really unusual finding for biological conductivity. It sets it apart from the conductive materials found in other known cable bacteria.
Wow. Okay, so nickel-based wires inside these extra wide ridges. What does that enable the bacterium to do?
It's fundamental to that long-distance electron transport we were talking about. Those nickel fibers are the conduits.
The electrical pathways.
Right. They connect the electron acceptors, like the oxygen or maybe nitrate near the sediment surface, all the way down to the electron donors, like sulfide, deeper in the muck.
So just to make sure I've got this, the bacterium sits there, maybe spanning centimeters, one end near oxygen, the other near sulfide, and it uses these internal nickel wires to run electrons between the two.
You got it. It's carrying out reduction-oxidation reactions. That's how it gets its energy. But over these surprisingly long distances, it plays a pretty big role in the chemistry of the sediment and how nutrients get cycled.
That's fascinating just from a pure science view. But what about, the real world? Are there potential uses for this, practical applications?
Oh, definitely. This is where it gets really exciting.
Yeah.
Dr. Lee pointed out a couple of major possibilities. First, environmental cleanup.
How would that work?
Well, because these bacteria are naturally moving electrons around and driving chemical reactions, maybe they could be harnessed. Or perhaps their mechanisms could be adapted to break down pollutants in contaminated sediments.
Like using bacteria as tiny, self-powered remediation systems.
Exactly. Imagine engineering systems based on these principles to target specific nasty things like heavy metals or certain organic pollutants.
That would be incredible. Okay, what was the second area?
Bioelectronics, the design of these highly conductive nickel protein fibers.
Yeah.
It's completely novel.
Nature's nanotechnology.
Pretty much. It could inspire totally new kinds of bioelectronic materials or devices. Because it's nickel-based, maybe it offers different properties, better conductivity, maybe more stability in certain conditions compared to materials inspired by other cable bacteria, perhaps leading to devices that don't rely on, say, rare metals.
Bioelectronics. That's
Yeah.
a huge field. Can you give us some examples? Where might we see this kind of thing applied down the line?
Well, think about medicine. Maybe tiny self-powered sensors you could implant, or new kinds of electrodes that work better with the body,
Okay.
or in manufacturing new conductive materials with unique properties. Maybe in food safety, creating super-sensitive biosensors, and definitely, as we mentioned, better tools for environmental monitoring and cleanup.
Could it even go further, like influencing battery tech or biocomputers?
It's early days, but yeah, those are the kinds of blue sky questions this discovery opens up. Biointegrated circuits, advanced energy storage. Who knows?
Yeah.
The fact that nature came up with this nickel-based electrical system is really thought-provoking.
It really is amazing finding this in essentially mud. And I assume these cable bacteria aren't just in Oregon.
Oh, no, not at all. They've been found all over the world now. Freshwater sediments, saltwater sediments, different climates, which suggests this electrical capability might be a pretty widespread and important ecological strategy. We're probably just scratching the surface of understanding them.
And this work, it wasn't just the two researchers you mentioned earlier, was it? It sounded like a bigger effort.
Yes, absolutely. It was very collaborative. Scientists from the University of Antwerp, Delft University of Technology in the Netherlands, and the University of Vienna were also involved. Big team effort.
Good science often is.
For sure. And it takes funding, too, of course. This research got support from various places, the Office of Naval Research, Oregon Sea Grant, Research Foundation Flanders, University of Antwerp EU programs.
Yeah.
It highlights how crucial that diverse funding is for pushing science forward.
Right. So let's try and wrap this up. We've dived into Candidatus Electrothrix yaqonensis, discovered in Oregon mudflats, named with respect for indigenous heritage.
Check. A cable bacterium bridging metabolic gaps with electricity.
And it's got unique features, those super wide ridges, the surprising nickel-based conductive fibers.
Right, setting it apart and possibly hinting at its evolutionary story.
And the potential.
Yeah.
Wow. Environmental cleanup on one hand, maybe revolutionizing bioelectronics on the other.
It's a fantastic example of how much potential is still hidden in the microbial world, isn't it?
It absolutely is. And it really gets you thinking. If bacteria evolved this kind of natural electrical wiring, what other incredible biological technologies are just waiting out there? What other microbial superpowers could we potentially harness?
That's the big question, isn't it? How could understanding these hidden biological systems help us tackle environmental problems or create entirely new industries?
Makes you look at a handful of mud a bit differently. There could be undiscovered innovations right under our feet.
A great thought to end on. The unseen world holds a lot of secrets and potentially a lot of solutions.